Good evening, everyone, and happy Valentine's Day. This is the meeting of the Board of Selectmen for February 14th at 6 p.m. If we could please stand and take the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For the record, as noted on the agenda, we continue to operate under the COVID guidelines that were identified on the agenda by the governor. We do have a few folks on Zoom. However, they are all related to the executive session, our attorneys for various cases for executive session. Before we approve the minutes, I'd like to just welcome welcome Rick.
That's good.
There's a little minor slip.
To be here. It's good to be here, right?
It's hard behind that mask, Rick.
Yeah.
Welcome to your first official meeting after our signing at the last meeting.
It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
We're thrilled to have you here. And if I could just ask for a quick moment of silence, we did lose a former principal of our middle school, Joan Chahowski, who passed away recently. Okay, thank you very much. First item on the agenda is the February 1st regular session meeting minutes. Questions, changes, anything for Courtney?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of October 1st.
February
Second.
1st.
February.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectman Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman Gould?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. In our first item under new business, we are blessed to have Chief Shaw here to give his kind of year-end report, but kind of a biannual report. So we've got a presentation here that Chief will go through, so take it away, please.
All right. Welcome. So this is our biannual report that we do every 6 months coming to you in front. So we're a couple months late. I was in Florida in January, so I wouldn't mind being there right now, actually, seeing as how it's 17 degrees out. So lots of things. The nice thing about doing this report is that it culminates the end of the year, so you get the whole snapshot of when it comes to statistics. So I think you'll be somewhat surprised with some of the numbers in a good way. So I'll get right into it. And let me just. All right. Oh, Gregory. It's not starting, Greg. No.
Well, we have the technical guys to
click
take care of the
from beginning,
technical
it says.
issues.
Yeah, because you're at the beginning.
Yep.
So then just, actually, how about if I put my glasses back up? There you go. And click on the next one right below it. Is it starting?
Yeah, but it's.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. It's not in a, it's in a different mode.
Yeah.
Where is it? There it is. That's what you want.
This one hasn't changed.
All right.
Greg, this one hasn't changed. The screen.
That's okay.
That's okay.
It will.
I just have to click anywhere?
Click the arrows left.
Quickly,
Oh,
arrows.
the arrows, okay.
There we go.
All right, so some of the things we're going to discuss tonight are noteworthy activity, personnel updates, community events that we were involved in, statistics, some crime rates for the year, and our newly, talk about our outreach with our new community outreach advocate. So this only covers our events from July 1st up until December 31st. So, because if you remember, in, I believe it was July, I came and talked about from January to June. So rather than rehash those 6 months, we'd be here for another 45 minutes. So noteworthy activities, usually high-profile arrests that we've made. First one, we had on July 2nd, Officer Trainer, Patrick Trainer, was working with the Detective Bureau on an investigation. Subsequently, they did a motor vehicle stop which led to an arrest and the seizure of 14 grams of crack and 14 grams of heroin. This is really nice work there. If you remember back in February, there was a shooting at the Hartley Street Apartments, and we had made an arrest on an individual down in Connecticut who was from Webster originally, fled down to Connecticut and Putnam. He was arrested, but we subsequently, as a result of the forensics and work that our detectives did, was able to tie the owner of the firearm that was used. We recovered the firearm, and through the forensics that the officers did, they were able to retrieve a fingerprint, which tied it to another individual, Trent Nicolopoulos, who was subsequently, he was arrested on July 16th. So there was such a gap in time because it took time to process that and get it back from the lab. So did very excellent work. And I have to say, like, our detectives are very savvy with the crime scene forensics part of it. Like, they are top-notch with getting, fingerprints and DNA. We have a very, very good success rate in processing our evidence and harvesting good evidence that we can use in court. And it's so much better than just having a statement or a confession, because as you know, people sometimes change their mind or statements change, they don't want to testify. But when you have hard and fast forensic evidence, it just makes the case that much more solid. So I'm very pleased with that. July 29th, we saw a new brig 18-foot rigid inflatable hull boat go into the water. It's fantastic. It's got forward-looking radar, so we shouldn't be hitting losing any more props when the water gets low. So it's been great. The officers really enjoy it. It's very nice. It's much better for what we need to do in patrolling the lake than the last two boats that we had. So we had a shooting on August 4th on Pleasant Street. Detectives had actually identified the suspect hours later, and he was residing in Webster. They actually recovered the firearm from that as well. The suspect fled, but he was later arrested in Southbridge, hiding out on the 20th. So some great police work going on there. 9/6, we've been fortunate, knocking on wood. We had a robbery at the Sunoco station. We've been pretty fortunate. I hope it don't jinx us as far as robberies go. We haven't had them in a while, but we did have one on the 6th, but it was actually two juveniles, a 13 and a 16-year-old, and they were actually apprehended by the shift on scene. They did a great job, rapid response. Nobody was hurt, and that case was pretty much wrapped up by the officers on shift. So it was a really, really nice job. On the 13th, we had a pursuit that began in Webster, and when the officer stopped the car over right by the line in Dudley, he approached the operator, who greeted him with an expletive-laced tirade and took off into Dudley, which then they pursued him over to in the Schofield Ave area. He was stopped. He went to his house. He was subsequently arrested after he fought with them. He was charged of OUI and failing to stop the police and numerous other motor vehicle charges. On that same night, the Southern Worcester County Counter-Crime and Drug Task Force were conducting an investigation where they seized 84 grams of fentanyl, which is a really, really large amount, 13 Suboxone strips, and 10 gabapentin pills. Did a really, really nice job. So that was the Southern Worcester County Crime and Drug Task Force is a task force that's made up of pretty much all the municipalities that go to Dudley District Court. So Webster, Dudley, Oxford, Charlton, Sturbridge, Southbridge. So we all work together, and it's been actually much more active recently the last year or two than it has been in previous years. So they're actually doing some really, really good work. We have a lot of good working relationships, and it's a nice supplement for manpower for investigations and whatnot. Another motor vehicle stop, which led to 14 grams of crack and 5 grams of fentanyl on October 26th. That was Shaw Emling when he was training David Brooks, who was on field training. They had a person that they knew to have active arrest warrants when they went to arrest him. He fought with them a little bit, and when they took him into custody, that's when they discovered that he had 14 grams of crack and 5 grams of fentanyl on this person. November 15th, we had a very serious head-on crash on Route 12 by Price Chopper. Very serious. It was Officer Spencer Donovan was on detail there, and he was the first one to arrive and call it out. He actually provided life-saving care. He opened up one of the passenger's airway, and I'm told that that's very quite possibly saved her life because she was unconscious when they arrived. They had to be extricated out by the fire department. And our last section of noteworthy activity was on December 2nd. There was a motor vehicle crash on Lake Parkway. The people from that were involved in that crash had left a family gathering over in Upper School Street. When they got into the accident, they called that family, and so several other people showed up, and another accident occurred, which ended up people were running by the time the officers got there. Lo and behold, there were several people got charged with OUI. There were 17, one of the people found to have 17 grams of heroin on their person, so they were charged with that. There was other people charged with OUI because they had children in the car, so they were charged with endangerment of a child. So it was kind of a mixed bag of everything, but they were all coming from essentially the same place. So it was one of those, almost like you can't make that stuff up. Those are the highlights. That's not everything that we've obviously been involved in, but we had a pretty busy second half of our year. Oops. All right. Some of our community involvement. Greg, I'm going to have you buy me a mouse. All right. So we did our first annual ever Touch a Truck at the Webster Public Library, which was a huge event. Had a lot of fun. We had a police car over there with ambulance and fire truck, and it was actually a lot of fun. It was very well received. We did our first cruise night of the summer on July 22nd behind the station. That's one of we tried something new. We've done our year-end car show in October that we usually do, and we still did last year, but we'd like to try to do a couple of cruise nights to get people out. We just kind of, if you remember, the COVID numbers were really low, so we were starting to try to get some kind of sense of normalcy and to get people back downtown and get people out and about. So we held a cruise night, which was pretty good. We tried to do it again in August, but it wasn't as well attended, so I think we're just going to stick to maybe 2 car shows for next year. We went back to doing our national night out down at the beach, which was a great success. We had police, fire, EMS, sheriff's department, lots of social agencies. It was very well attended. AJ from Point Breeze provided the food this year. Normally he cooks, but he had a lot going on, so he provided us the food, and we had the deputy chief. We put him behind the grill, and everybody else gave him a hand helping out cook. It was great, and the nice thing is that event's free of charge. So we actually had a really, really nice night. We had some slides for the kids down there. It was a really, really, really good time. One of the better ones I think we've had. We did our first ever, the Fraternal Order of Police held a bass fishing tournament. It was one of the first times we've ever done that, which I don't know why we never did it before. We've done the ice fishing tournament a couple of years in the past. But again, another great success. We've actually contracted with a local fishing group. We're going to do 2 next year. We're going to do one in May and one in September, both before and after the gates. They stop charging at the lake, so it won't interfere with anything there, so we won't have to worry about, interrupting the revenue stream of that. So looking forward to that. Again, we had our year-end cruising night. I think we had about 80 cars, if I remember correctly. That was when I went to Florida then, too. Kind of planning things out for later on. And we were asked to do a safety fair at North Village, so they had a safety fair where we joined fire and EMS. So we have I received a lot of bike helmets from a grant that I received. So we gave out a bunch of bike helmets down there, and that was a lot of fun to be a part of. Main Street Trick or Treat, Trunk or Treat. So normally these 2 events have been held apart, but the weather wasn't cooperating last year. If you remember, we had some rain. So we used to do Trunk or Treat down at the beach. Maybe we do Main Street Trick or Treat, obviously we'd be down here with the businesses. So this year we decided to combine the 2, and I was blown away by how many people were there. It was unbelievable. That's what this picture is from. It doesn't do it justice. I can't believe how many people were there, but I think it was a really, really good turnout, and I think something we're going to build upon for next year as well. We had our first ever concert at the town hall. We had our own police band was the opening act, Peace Restored. They're actually pretty good. We're surprised. They practiced quite a bit, so much so that I've talked to Carol Marchand. I'd like to get them to play at the fireworks when we do the fireworks down at the beach. It was great. They actually did a really, really nice job, and they were all about it, so they were all excited. So I might have to become like their agent or something. They tried to get me to get up there and sing. I said, you don't want me up there singing. I can lip sync, but that's about it.
Chief will be on the tambourine.
Yeah, I said I could play the triangle or something.
Cowbell.
Yeah, exactly. Put a velour top on. The fall, things kind of slow down for a little bit, but not a whole lot. We start our coat drive that runs all winter long. If people want to drop off coats, we have our friends at the post office give us a bin. I bring them over to Food Share once it fills up, and they go to local folks from Webster and Dudley. That runs all the way through pretty much March, April. Once the weather starts to break, then we discontinue that. Any new or gently used coats, we welcome those. Socks, hats, mittens. The only thing we don't take are shoes, or we don't want bags of clothes. We started our second year that we did our turkey drive with Our Bright Future. It's been a lot of fun partnering with Quasi. He does a lot for the town. I know he does the stem cell program out of the STEM program out of St. Joe's School. I got to go see his kids up at Nichols over the summertime, doing a lot of great stuff. So I'm always happy to partner up with him. They have some kids that do some video things, so I'm trying to get them to come over and do something at the station, do something we can maybe put it on the website. And we started our toy drive. Again, we've been doing our annual toy drive. We've been doing that since pretty much I started. This year we had about 90 families that we served. We had a great year. We had probably our most successful year as far as getting donations. As you can see, the community room was filled, the hall was filled, and it's really a great event. The families over here we love getting together and making a Sunday morning of it. We get the names, we pack everything up, and then we have lunch together. It's a really great experience for us because we get to do something fun for the community. And it's nice, it's just for the folks here in town in Webster that benefit from it. And the Christmas parade on December 13th, that was a lot of fun. Hopefully that becomes an annual thing. Hint, hint, Carol. This thing's gonna be the death of me. And we packaged the toys up on the 19th for the families, and they picked them up. They run that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and we got rid of. Normally, sometimes we get stuck with some things, but we got rid of everything this year, which was great. So there was no waste. It was a lot of fun. Personnel. We had some personnel things happening. On July 12th, Sergeant LaRochelle, officers Jacek Ohatsky, John Brooks, and Robert Rockwood were recognized by the Webster Board of Selectmen for their heroic actions at a structure fire on 146 High Street. If you remember, this is where the visually impaired person was up on the overhang of the farmer's porch, and the officers were the first to arrive. They acquired a ladder from a neighbor, and Sergeant LaRochelle climbed up, and they got her down on the ladder. They would subsequently be recognized by the District Attorney's Office for that same action. So we always appreciate. It's always nice to be able to recognize them for those types of for that bravery. On August 1st, we got our lateral transfer. Alex Johnson came from the Littleton Police Department. He did a brief stint in field training, and he's hit the ground running. He's truly an asset. Fits right in with us. He's been a very welcome addition, and it's great to have him. It was definitely a great pickup by us. On August 30th, we kind of broke some new ground here. We hired our community outreach advocate, Jennifer Genduso, to start full-time. If you remember, we had gotten some money way back. Representative McKenna had gotten the Webster Opiate Task Force an earmark for the task force to utilize, and at that point we had started doing some outreach with recovery coaches and some social workers that would work part-time for us. And one of my end goals was to get a full-time social worker, and I use that in quotation marks because Jen's not a licensed social worker, but she has a bachelor's in social work, and she's hopefully working towards that, getting that licensure. But it's been an absolute godsend having her, because she bridges that gap for the officers to, if they have an issue, whether it's not just substance abuse, but it's mental health, it's domestic violence, it's elder services, and just miscellaneous, helping somebody sign up for Mass Health. She's able to bridge that gap and provide those services, whereas the regular patrol officer doesn't know who to refer that to, or doesn't even know that they can refer somebody to that. So we have her in-house, and it's been absolutely fantastic, and I'll talk a little bit more about her towards the end. I can tell you that I've been contacted by several other communities in the state about asking for the job description, and how did you guys do it? And I was like, well, the great thing is, Doug saw the need, and he was able to apply for the Community Compact grant, which helped partially fund it, but the town saw the need and the value of it. because it's such a benefit for us, for our community. And it's nice to be able to have that resource, not just for the police department, but for everybody. Board of Health can utilize her, building inspector, anybody that comes across, you know, however you come across somebody, whether it's even in the clerk's office. If you think somebody might need some assistance somehow, she's an awesome resource to have. On October 4th, Officer Robert Brooks, David Brooks, we have enough Brookses over there, and Joseph Fitzpatrick, they graduated the police academy and they started their field training. On October 25th, again, those officers were again, Sergeant Reed, Officer Francesca Cedeno, Yasek Ohutsky again, and Thomas Motika. They received the team award by District Attorney Joe Worley's office for the fire that they rescued the elderly woman and got everybody else over on Robertson Street. That was back in March of this year. I did get a call from District Attorney Joe Worley, and he wants to recognize the officers, Sergeant LaRochelle and that group, for what they did on High Street. They just have to work out, they want to speak to the victim, the family first before they formally do that. So that's coming. Sorry. All right, so statistics. This is year end, so this is year end 2020 to year end 2021. So this is not just the 6 months, this is the entire time. So for calls for service, that's anytime the phone rings and a Webster police officer responds, or anybody that calls looking for a Webster police, any type of activity that gets logged. We had, in 2020, we had 22,065 calls for service. In 2021, we had 21,875, so a slight decrease there. In custody arrest, somebody actually gets handcuffs put on them. In 2020, we had 548. In 2021, we had 530, so 18, so a reduction of about 18. Summonses, that's when somebody violates a criminal offense, or the officers aren't sure, so they'll send up a probable cause determination request for a hearing, or they'll summon somebody in for a criminal offense that they can't arrest for, such as an assault and battery. We had 770 summonses in 2020. In 2021, we had 755. So again, a small reduction there. Yeah, so citations, and that includes warnings and civil citations, does not include verbal warnings. 1,326 and 1,220 in 2021. So it was another reduction there. The only thing that did go up, we had 304 crashes in 2020. We had 348 crashes in 2021. That number is still down from the previous. I looked at 19 and 18. It's still down from those years. Crime rates. So this is so the IMC, the records management system that we utilize at the station that collects all of our data. We have to report every year. We report, they're called NIRS, the National Incident-Based Reporting System. So it breaks crimes down into several categories, and certain crimes fit into certain categories. So I started to do this, if you remember, in July. I came across this and I ran the crime rates, and it was a decrease. So I was curious to see how we would do in the year end. So the first one, crimes against the persons. So crimes against the persons, the category that they put that into is it comes into kidnapping and abduction, forcible rape, forcible sodomy, forcible fondling, aggravated assault, simple assault, intimidation, incest, and statutory rape. Those are all considered crimes against the persons according to the NIBRS. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. All right. So we had 530 of those in 2021. And we had 535 in 221 that were reported. So that was actually up 1%. So crimes against property. So crimes against property includes crimes that are counterfeit or forgery, fraud, and that breaks it down further into false pretenses or swindling, fraud, credit card, debit card, ATM, fraud of impersonation, embezzlement, stolen property, destruction of property, vandalism. And then it comes down to robbery, arson, burglary, breaking and entering, extortion, blackmail, larceny, pickpockets, larceny purse snatching, larceny shoplifting, larceny from the building, larceny from motor vehicle, larceny of motor vehicle parts, larceny and motor vehicle theft. So all types of larceny. So the total for that in 2020 was 510. And it was 441 in 2021 for a decrease of about 14%. Crimes against society. This is your drug narcotic violations, pornography, obscene material, prostitution, and weapon law violations. We had 114 reported crimes in 2020, and in Yep,
Chief did it.
yep, I did.
That's okay, just say okay to that,
Yep,
and then go back to screen share within the Zoom app.
Okay.
Scroll your mouse up to that Zoom window.
up here, yep.
See where it says share screen, the green button at the bottom?
Oh, yeah, yep.
Choose that, and then you're gonna choose, well, actually, you're gonna go live with your presentation for here. Let me see something real quick.
Yeah, you-
I don't mean to.
No, you do you, because this is not,
And from current,
yeah.
and then we gotta go back. Minimize you, minimize you. And yes, is that the one?
Yeah, crime rates. Yep.
Nope. You share. I didn't bring my glasses with me.
Do you want mine?
Yes.
They're from Christmas. They're probably-
My apologies,
The
everyone.
comment about the blind leading the blind, so.
This is bizarre. It's like all of a sudden just like dropped off. Go. Go. And share. It's still sharing the wrong, it keeps jumping to this. All right, what is going on? Let's gonna just stop it. Stop. Okay, share. Good. One more time. There we go.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, Greg.
So crimes against society, there was 114 in 2020, 91 in 2021 for a reduction of 20%. Group B crimes, this is kind of the catch-all: disorderly conduct, OUI, drunkenness, nonviolent family offenses, liquor law violations, peeping Tom, runaways, trespassing, and all other offenses. So that's the catch-all of everything else that I didn't mention. Everything else falls into that. That was 475 in 2020. In 2021, it was 460, so that went down 3%. So overall, you know, I was encouraged by the numbers. I went back to the other 2 years, and there was actually increases from 18 to 19, 19 to 20. So this was actually the first year we saw some decreases. So just a little bit about our community outreach. So these are all these numbers are from August 28th, so that's when Jen started, up until last week. She didn't know I wanted them from 12/31. So this is everything that she's done. She's helped. So domestic violence, she's contacted 9 and she's assisted 6. That means they've taken services, or she's helped them get some kind of whatever programming they needed. So mental health, she's contacted 43, assisted 21, so almost half. Substance use disorder, contacted 43, assisted 24. Elder services, contacted 9, assisted 9. In homeless housing, she's contacted 5, assisted 4. And then the others is contacted 2 and assisted 2. So this is just these are just the outreach that she does. So if someone gets identified or referred to her, the patrol officers are really good about it. They take her out on the calls, or if they see somebody that they think might benefit from her services, they'll reach out to her. This doesn't take into account, you know, we took her out, we had a resident in town that was suffering from some mental illness, so Jen went with the officers to do a well-being check. Nothing came of it, but she was there as a resource should she be needed. So there's countless times that happens, where she's able to go and just help and talk to somebody. So that's not necessarily documented here. But again, that's a service that it's beneficial to the patrol officers, because while they're excellent at, de-escalation and mediating conflict, but to have this liaison to be able to help that, these people, we may have, through the elder services, they may have contacted Tri-Valley, but they also may not have come across our radar either. And again, so she's starting to find her way. I mean, it's only been, I think, not even 6 months. And I thought she was like, at first I wasn't sure if she was gonna have enough to do, but like that first day, she was literally hit the ground running. So it's been really fun, and it's really progressive, and I'm actually very, very proud of having this position. And I can't thank the town enough for seeing the need for it and supporting it. And that's it. That's my last picture.
A great
Does
report,
anybody-
Chief.
any
On the last one with,
Yep.
with Jen, she's not generally in the cruiser, but if the officers are on a call, she might receive a call to
Absolutely.
go out there to help. Otherwise, it would be probably after they've done the call.
Yeah, so sometimes she's normally in her office, but she'll go down there if she's and just go and ride too sometimes. Or if they like if somebody comes in and there's a Section 12 issue, which means somebody's maybe thinking about hurting themselves, they'll grab her and she'll go with them. Once the scene is safe, she'll go in there and assist them. Elderly, we've really found a lot of issues with elderly folks, and she was beneficial, huge in that, reaching out and just connecting with Tri-Valley. Because it's hard when you're working 3 to 11. Sure, you can file the Tri-Valley report, you can file the elder at risk report, but honestly, the officers are so busy that they don't have the chance to follow up with it. They file it's like a 51A. They'll file it, and the system hopefully works it out. But now she's able to follow up with that. And it's great. Like we had a need with we tried to help out poor Walklaw, our the homeless gentleman that was always out there. We did Section 35. She and I got a Section 35 for him, and she helped me with that. She's been a godsend.
I mean, it's just doing the math, it seems like she's at least one call a day that she's making out contacts with people. In the 4 months and 21 that she's been there.
There are days that we were talking, and there are some days she'll be spending all day on one person. In other words, and we would never we don't have the time to do that, and nor do we have the knowledge, and for her to be able to follow up with that person, it's great, because we wouldn't be able to. They would slip through the cracks.
No, we all, I think, commend you. It's cutting edge, to use that term, and I can see why other towns might be contacting you.
Yeah, and the town should really be proud of this, because it's not just the police department. It's she's here for everybody, so the town should really, really be proud of this, because it's put us on the map, so to speak.
Yeah, I think it's a great job. I expected it to gradually increase, but the numbers are incredible.
Yeah, I was surprised when she sent it to me. I was like, wow. I was surprised at how much it was.
Have the other departments actually utilized her? I know
she was working with Camille down in the Board of Health with a resident that had some I think it was some hoarding issues.
Yeah.
So
the word is out there.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think the diversity of help that's being offered, I think, is notable here. And then I'd also just even say, I know she's using government resources, but, maybe putting her in touch with Jill St. Cyr at It Starts at Home, because they do a lot of support on sponsorship on some folks, whether it's, elders in the need of help, or people with homeless issues or things like that, and families. So that's another resource that she might be able to, quickly, Jill put something out there on her It Starts at Home, and, last week they just raised a whole bunch of money to send some student at Shepherd Hill on a trip that they couldn't afford. So just keep that in mind as another
absolutely.
resource.
Sure, definitely.
Further questions, or?
I had one more question, going back to some of the metrics you provided, particularly around the crashes that were there. I think it was 548. So I was just a little curious there in terms of, I don't know if you had any breakdowns on it. I was curious how many of those are at our infamous exit 2, or
Quite a
are they
few.
at other places in the town that we need to be looking at?
Exit 2 is probably the most common. They're not the most serious, but that's probably the most common one. I can provide you a big breakdown of the crashes, and I can send it to the board.
I just think, I know we often look at the safety committee for, you know, recommendations, and I'm wondering if in those numbers there's anything indicative of actions we should take.
Yeah, I don't know, I'll look into that. Other than exit 2, the off-ramp there, and I'm not sure how that's gonna be addressed with the upcoming project. If they're
The
gonna have
modern-day roundabout.
roundabouts and lights and things, so I don't know if that'll address the problem or not, but I will certainly, I can forward
I'm
that
just
to you.
curious.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Like anything new, Chief, you probably know, it'll probably increase things for a little while until people get used to it. But you're right, there will be a light and the roundabout on both sides of the bridge, so. Just a question, Chief, about fentanyl. I mean, obviously, that's extremely dangerous to the officers and to EMS. Are they specific precautions that they can take? I mean, they're gloved, but if they touch it or breathe it, you know, obviously, that can really hurt them.
So one good thing that came out about COVID is everybody wears the gloves, but everyone's masked up when they go to a medical call. We all wear the masks. Originally it was for COVID, but now we take the precaution, and it helps with the fentanyl. Fentanyl's in everything. I mean, it's in marijuana, it's in cocaine, it's everywhere. Heroin is it's just very, very common. So yeah, the officers are we're a busy department, we're a busy town. And unfortunately, we have our share of substance use problems, but the officers are savvy to that, and they take the appropriate precautions.
Further questions, comments from the board?
No, good job.
Thank you.
Great job, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
You know, I think the community involvement is stellar. And I was just saying to Rick in our first one-on-one that we're really blessed to have you and have such a dedicated, you know, force of Webster Police Department officers and staff, so.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a great group of people over there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just point out, I'm following this agenda on my phone. I'm not being disrespectful or rude for the board or anybody watching at home, so just so people are aware. Thank you.
Yeah, I have mine on my
Yeah,
computer
just,
here and the
well, it was
paper copy
supposed to
as
be
well.
here, but as Greg was very prophetic about my battery, so so I'm just making sure that I can follow along.
Thank you.
Just, Chair, I just
Yes.
have one. I know that there was a question that Courtney brought up to me that I just wanted to bring up with the board. I know it was asked about if we had a policy about people that owe money on details.
Thank you, Courtney, for reminding, yes.
So I don't have a written policy on it, but what we've done and since I've been in the chief, and I think even since I've been in the command staff, anybody that owes the department money, they're not allowed to get permits or licenses. So whether it be a permitting for a sewer license or a curb cut or whatever, they aren't able to, until they settle up with us 100%, then they can't get any permits. So, and I know that there's an establishment in town that we used to fight with. They wouldn't get their alcohol license until they paid their details. I know that Ann Morgan sends to the development committee, when people have ARPA grants in, she'll ask if they're in good standing with the departments, and, you know, so, and if they're not, I would assume they wouldn't be eligible for the grants through the town. So we've always done that with everybody going forward. We don't have anything in writing, but that's just the way it's always been with Chief Bent prior to me, and that's the way I've continued to do business as well. So I hope that.
Yeah, so Chief, maybe you can work with Rick and just come up with a written policy, and that will alleviate, I think, some of the questions.
Absolutely.
So it's good to hear, it's the same process that's always been
Yeah, everybody
going
gets,
on.
yeah, it's the same for everyone.
And that's something that's handled within the police department administration?
Correct.
As far as the collecting of billing and collecting?
Yep.
So it doesn't
Anybody-
run through the town accountant for the billing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Nancy is, so she does all the billing for it, and I know she'll send out letters, collection letters, past due letters. We have gone to the court to try to get people to pay that way. Normally, they'll pay up beforehand, but we have had to go to Dudley District Court to file.
Great, appreciate that. Thank you. Courtney, thanks for the reminder. Next item on the agenda, request to approve the pledge of collateral license application submitted by Kinsley Hospitality doing business as Mohegan Bolodrome, 51 Thompson Road in Webster. This is on page 8 of our package. So Courtney, this is a little different because it's a pledge of collateral. Do you have all the paperwork that you need?
Yes, we were missing a signature
So that starts on page 8, runs through page 27 of our package.
Did you say he's coming tomorrow to sign? Because I noticed there were no signatures. There were no signatures.
Yes, correct, I did email them, yep.
Any other questions? If not, subject to that signature, would entertain a motion on this one?
I'll make a motion to approve the pledge of collateral license application submitted by Kinsley Hospitality, Inc., DBA Mohegan Bowl, 51 Thompson Road, Webster.
So, second?
Okay, motion and a second, and if I could just ask that we include subject to the appropriate
Subject
signature.
to the appropriate signatures.
Great. Further questions? Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectman Clifford?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman Gould?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. Next item, request to approve the one-day liquor license application submitted by Our Bright Future, 32 Everett Street, Southbridge, for an event at St. Joseph's School on 47 Wickham Street for Saturday, May 14th, 2022, 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. And that is on page 28 of our package. Any issues with that one, Courtney? Okay,
No, they're very good.
so we have all the
We signed off, but
chief's signature. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the one-day liquor license application submitted by Our Bright Future, Inc., 32 Everett Street, Southbridge, for an event at St. Joe's School, 47 Wickham Street, Webster, on Saturday, May 14th, from 5 to 9 p.m.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Okay, motion made and second. Any other discussion? Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectman Clifford?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman Gould?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. Next is the request to approve one-day liquor license application submitted by Sam Slater's Experience, 31 Ray Street, Webster, an event on Thursday, March 3rd, 2022. And that's on page 29 of our package. It's their grand opening, and I know
Exciting.
Mr. Robert and all of the folks that have been working with him have done an incredible job at the museum, so they're certainly to be commended for that. So this would be a great way to have their grand opening.
I'll make a,
Motion to approve the one-day liquor license application submitted by Samuel Slater's Experience, 31 Ray Street, Webster, for an event on Thursday, March 3rd, 2022.
second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Courtney, would you pull the board, please?
Selectman Clifford?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman Gould?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. Next is request to reappoint Elaine Gould to the Council on Aging for a term to expire June 30th of 2024. Rick, I'm not sure, but I do believe that Greg may have contacted, or Courtney has contacted the chairperson. This is a reappointment.
Yes, Jean, actually, it was submitted in your packet also that Jean has sat down with them, and for some reason during the appointment period, they were overlooked, so they have met, they have agreed, this is what the Council on Aging is looking to do.
Okay, great. Thank you. And that's on page 30. I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to reappoint Elaine Gould to the Council on Aging for the term to expire on June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Courtney, would you pull the board, please?
Selectman Clifford?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman Gould?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. And we also have an email in our package, too, for the reappointment of Phyllis Roman to the same Council on Aging. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to reappoint Phyllis Roman to the Council on Aging for a term to expire June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Courtney, would you pull the board, please?
Selectman Clifford?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman Gould?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. And finally, we have one more to appoint. This is not a reappointment, but a new appointment of Judith Lewinsky to the Council on Aging for a term to expire June 30th of 2024. And I'll entertain a motion. I believe here that we have followed the procedure where we've contacted.
Jean was just a little concerned that it is a little cold for some of the appointments to come out in person, and some of them don't have the technology to go on Zoom. When it does come nicer, they would like to give the board an update.
Okay, great, thank you.
I'll make a motion to appoint Judith Lewinsky to the Council on Aging for the term to expire June 30, 2024.
Second?
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectman Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman Gore?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. Our next item is discuss and consider suspension of Mr. Tyler Rodolfo from the Economic Development Committee. There are several pages in our package here, starting at page 32 and running through page 39. So I know that there's been some concern expressed from several folks in Town Hall with regards to certain posts on social media as well as certain activities within the Town Hall, expressing some concern whether or not Mr. Rodolfo should continue on the Economic Development Committee. I did send a note to Mr. Rodolfo, which was sent out to the board, not in our package, but sent separately, indicating that there were some concerns and the Selectmen were considering suspending him in accordance with the charter. The charter section was provided in our package. At this point, I'll leave it open to any questions or concerns. Okay,
I,
go ahead,
yeah,
Earl.
I just think it's, you know, given what has transpired during the time of his appointment and now that it's probably good to suspend Mr. Rodolfo from the Economic Development Committee at this time.
Okay. And so in looking at the charter, a suspension, if it were voted on, would then take place, and then the board would have to decide what to do next. So I would ask the board, my fellow members, if it makes sense, if we do go forward with a motion for suspension, that we also then make a motion to include in there to have a hearing for the rescission of the appointment. So I'll put that out for discussion.
Yeah, I think if we take a look at the language of the bylaw, it would be considered conduct unbecoming the office. Some of the language that was in the documents that we looked at was, I thought, egregious.
Okay. So, Tom, you're referring to, this would be on our page 32, section 7.8, 7-8, removals and suspensions, referring to conduct unbecoming the office.
Yes.
Further discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to suspend Mr. Rodolfo with the opportunity to set a hearing to suspend him from the Economic Development Committee.
I second.
So it's a motion to suspend Mr. Dolfo from the Economic Development Committee and to set up a hearing for rescission of appointment? Okay. So that's
Second. Yeah.
Any further discussion? Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectman Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman Gore?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. And either I or Rick will reach out to Mr. Rodolfo and let him know that this process is going on at this point. Next item on the agenda, vote to rescind the all-alcohol liquor license for Be Kind Cafe, 8 Davis Street, Webster, Mass. And this is a business closure, Courtney? And this particular license is restricted, it's an all liquor license? And it is restricted to the Main Street area?
Yep.
So this then would, if we do vote to rescind, this would open up a new license available to another establishment. And Courtney did provide the information in our package, explaining the information. That's on page 40 of 41. Any questions, discussion?
I'm just sad to see it close.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sad to see it close, and we just had provided the, all alcohol license too, so it is
Yeah.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to rescind the all-alcohol liquor license for Be Kind Cafe, Inc., 8 Davis Street, Webster, Mass.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectman Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman Gore?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. And up next is the Rick's first town administrator report. You've been officially on the payroll since Wednesday, so
Correct.
assume we'll get a nice verbal update.
Yes, you will, but not tonight. So, just a couple things, Mr. Chairman. First of all, as I mentioned, it's nice to be here. It's been less than a week now. Fortunately, I hit the schedule just as we were beginning our internal budget discussions with individual department heads. So that was a great opportunity right off the bat to get to know people, particularly to get to know some of the operational matters that it may be a little bit different. For instance, the chief's outreach program. That's very unique, not something I've seen. So it was a good chance to get to know people and get to know some of the internal operations. The problem is I haven't had much time to do anything else. But getting to know the budgets was important, working with Mr. Hall, our very fine finance director. It is our goal to have a preliminary budget to the Selectmen and the Finance Committee by the end of the month. Obviously, wrapping my arms around something before I can make some sort of recommendation is going to take a little while. So at least to get something out the door that might look close to what a final product might be would be helpful for everybody at this stage. But I did have a chance to speak to Mr. Biannual. He was very gracious with his time. And just as an example of some of the things we discussed, and I think this is maybe helpful for everybody to realize, just scratching the surface of those things that we're dealing with right now, there's collective bargaining issues. I think the board's well aware of with our multiple units. There's labor and personnel issues. I think the board is aware of most of those. We've got the host community agreements with our marijuana establishments, and that's there's a lot of moving pieces there. It's not as simple as it may sound. We have infrastructure issues, not just town hall, but we got water and sewer, highway department. We've got some issues at the police department. So when you hear building maintenance, that's a very expansive issue that's going to take a lot of people a lot of time. We've got stormwater permitting, ARPA, CARES Act administration and decision-making, benefits. You know, it's something that the public doesn't see, but the extensive work and analysis that goes into and working with our labor groups with regard to benefit administration and health care and plan design. We've got the firefighter grants and consideration of how we're going to fund those positions and possibly more positions to go to a full-time department, 24/7 full-time department. And obviously, I've got to learn about our dispatch operation, which seems very, very effective. So that's just scratching the surface, but those are some of the matters that I've had time to speak to Greg about, and certainly Courtney's institutional knowledge and her insight and advice is also very, very helpful for me at the moment. So that's all I have at this time, Mr. Chairman and board members. And if you have any questions between now and, well, anytime, please feel free to drop me a line.
Thank you, Rick. I also wanted to be made known, I thanked you earlier when we had our meeting, but Rick started early without pay. He was here on Monday, you know, going through with Tim Bell, some of the budget work and meeting some of the department heads. So thank you for, you know, taking the step to do that as well. We also want to make sure that we formally thank Greg. So what I'll do is I'll put a letter together that perhaps we can all sign, thanking him. It was wonderful to have Greg here. I think he passed the baton very nicely over to Rick for a smoother transition, and Greg has assured me if anything was needed, Rick has his phone number, so
Yes, I do.
we'll continue to have that nice, smooth transition. Just a final note for myself, and I'm sure the board too. We've had a lot of snow lately. I think, you know, kudos to Kenny and the entire highway department. They've done a great job. And then the onslaught of the potholes that arrived a couple weeks ago, they've done a great job plugging all of those. So just an outstanding job, and a thank you to Kenny and his crew. Any further questions for the town administrator or comments?
No, welcome, and we're glad that the first week didn't scare you away.
Well, it hasn't been a full week yet.
Right there.
I was impressed. You had said when you first started speaking that you didn't have much to report on, but there was quite a bit there on your list.
Well, Greg and Doug left us with a lot to do, so, but things are getting done. Things have not been just left hanging, so that's good to see. They're just, like every community, there's just so many hours in a day. But we'll be working at it.
Well, there's a lot going on, so I would entertain a motion, if there's no further questions, to accept the town administrator's report.
I make a motion that we accept the town administrator's report.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectman Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman DeBoer?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes. The next item is executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. We have several items listed on here. I will not read them all. They are listed on the agenda. In addition to the legal status of some of these items, we do have executive session meeting minutes to review and determine if we're going to release those. Those are the items, and I would entertain a motion to enter executive session. We would come out of executive session into the public for purposes of item number 6, which is vote to approve the MOA with 3 of the unions, and then we would look to close out after that.
So moved.
Okay, motion, and do we have a second?
Second.
To enter executive session. Any further discussion? Courtney, would you poll the board, please?
Selectman Claiborne?
Yes.
Selectman Contos?
Yes.
Selectman DeBoer?
Yes.
Chairman Becker?
Yes, and we will go into executive session. We will come back out to deal with item number 6 and then close out the meeting.